Hello everybody, welcome back. It's Market Sniper. Time for a ride along, walk along, ride along video. Greek flag ahead for the south of Cyprus, the desert island. Probably going to run 36, 37 degrees today, and yours truly aimed to get out this morning, and in actual fact it's now 1 o'clock. That's what happens. That's what happens. So many things to do, things that need responding. But anyway, what are we going to talk about? I want to talk to you about the stick to the plan, guys. We're waiting for gold to resume its breakout to the upside, hopefully. But it's back in range. It's being brought down a little bit, looking a little bit like it could get sold off. We're sitting in between those monthly charts where there's clear sell-offs by the month end, back down. The candles, the shooting stars of the last 3 months that show that there is some selling in the 3,400 to 3,500 levels. That gold's currently being contained. And then on the lower time frames, we're seeing it work its way back up. So we have to start with the payroll numbers of Friday. The payroll numbers of Friday. So the numbers came in looking for 120,000, which is not a big number. That's new jobs created, non-farm payrolls. Came in at 73. And here's the interesting stuff about the payroll numbers. The previous 2 months, May and June, were reduced by 133,000 June, 125,000 May. The monthly reductions, the monthly downside revisions on the 2 previous months that make up May, June, July were 125 and 133. Just soak that in for a minute. Now, on average, listen up, on the last year and a half, on average, payrolls are seeing revisions of minus 58,000 jobs during the year. During the year, you're seeing minus 58,000. Last year, after all the monthly downside revisions that follow after the non-farm payrolls, like you got the May number, you got the June number, and now you're getting it monthly revised down. At the end of the year, not the first haircut to the numbers, the second haircut comes to the numbers, and you got a further 800,000 plus revised on last year's downside numbers. Roughly, you're looking at an annual revision after the monthly revisions. So let me make clear again, that's a second cut to the initial number release. Just the second. You're cutting it once in the month after and the 2 months after. And then at the end of the year, you're passing an annual cut, which if calculated to monthly level is minus 73. So before you have a payrolls release number, fake number stories today, you're likely to get in the next couple of months a 58k revision downside on average. Although, let me also say, the current trend on the last 2 months is 130, 125 and 133. You're averaging just under 130 revisions, so it's getting worse. The last year has been 58 a month calculated, revisions monthly, but the last 2 months are averaging about 128,000 jobs, overstated. Then you have the annual revision to come. And the annual revision calculates out per month another 73,000. So if the last year, 18 months, on average, which is a very imperfect measure, please understand, but on average, and getting worse currently, you should be looking at 58 plus 73,000. 58 in the next 2 months or so on a monthly revision down. And at the end of the year, 73,000. So 58 is almost 60, 73 is 70. You're looking around 130,000 overstatement in a non-farm payrolls, for which you just got a 70k number, which probably means in a single month you've had a net loss of jobs of 60,000. Think about that for a minute. Every job below 130 on an NFP is net job losses on average. Then realize it's gotten worse. The downside revisions are not at 50k, 8k, which is an average over the last 12 months, 18 months. On the last 2 months, that number is actually 128. So add 73, call it 72, onto 128. If you continue at the current last 2 months rate of job losses, every job below 200,000, 73 plus 128. The last one was actually 133, worse. So if you took the last one of 133 and added 73, you're actually sitting at 206,000 jobs, non-farm payroll number, just to not be contracting on average. This is Chinese mathematics. You understand what averages are. So the US is exactly where we told you so many times. It's in and out perennially in recession, and you're being lied to. But the last shoe to fall, which we've said, and next comes as the final shoe to fall, which will bring the housing crisis and everything else, is in actual fact jobs. And it's a lagging indicator because people fire late. It's expensive to hire, it's expensive to reskill up, it's expensive to pay people 3 months, 6 months wages, depending on what standing they are at, and pay them off just to benefit. The benefits to the business only start accruing 3 or 6 months later, depending how many months you paid them off for. And in high tech, where we're seeing a lot of white collar indigenous Americans being fired for H-1B visa Indians at a lower rate, who are working 14 hours a day because they're terrified of having their visa cancelled and being sent back to Bombay. This is the new technocracy, statist labor hustle to further pump earnings and reduce cost and maximize upside, you don't lay off a tech guy with just a couple of months' wages, especially if he's been with you 5-10 years. It costs you to get rid of him. So, the truth of the economy is that employment is in contraction. Then there's the truth to be considered on the unemployment number that barely moved much down at all. And here's the catch. Labor participation dropped nearly 0.5%. Close, barring the extreme exceptions of COVID, which was extremely exceptional, and one or two others, you're at near lows on labor participation. So those are people who aren't claiming unemployment yet, but aren't officially employed and are unengaged. And people also beyond the 6-month mark, I think it is, where if you haven't announced that you've got a job, you treat it as non-participative in the economy. You don't go into, hey, I'm currently unemployed numbers. So they get the unemployment number to look much less bad by eliminating structural to underemployed and unemployed people. How do you get statistics to lie? This is the discussion we're having here. What is the truth about the American economy? Stagflation. In fact, a hyper version of stagflation, hence us creating the phrase hyper stagflation that's never existed before, but best describes the debt and fiat-based collapse, the low growth environment, the contracting employment environment, yet stock market at all times highs because of record high inflation, other investment alternatives, the debt market in financial repression, which means it's automatically giving you a high negative yield. But then you will have the people that will say, but inflation numbers are low. We're at 2.6, 2.4%. So here's the other thing that was a lie, that this government, and we'll come back to Trump and the Republican government, because there's so many believers, they voted right, they voted themselves freedom, they got their guy, just because he's not a duddering, absolute imbecile who's pushing cultural warfare on the trans agenda and everything else than Biden. They've now got their guy. And boy, does he know how to play it. What did he do when he went to the UK? He mocked Sadiq Khan, who's obviously unpopular, all the immigrant crisis, being Islamic mayor. He mocked all the guys for, you know, the green windmills, and everybody goes, yeah, go Trump, yeah, go Trump. He's playing to the theater, and the puppy dogs are eating up the little cat and doggy pellets that he's throwing down for you, and urinating all over at the same time. You're just lapping it up like mutts. And you can be a mutt. It's okay to be a mutt. I just don't want to engage in intellectual discourse with mutts. So, you know, muddle on, unsubscribe, leave your nasty comment, hit the dislike button. Do it now. Trump's my man. Screw you, ugly person, bad skin person, bald person, stupid person, doomer person. Choose your adjective, stick it in there, and piss off. Okay. Those that are still open now. The inflation calculation since the introduction of tariffs first time has pivoted to an estimation model. It's a bit like how we do the non-farm payrolls. It's the same liars doing the same crooked numbers. And why would you expect anything else? Known liars and frauds lie and commit fraud. I mean, it's simple really, isn't it? That's what they do. That's how they steal. That's how they sell you lies. You know, you don't expect an outburst of extended honesty, sincerity, and integrity out of her habitual known liars, frauds, and deceivers, do you now? If you do, you're part of the crowd that should leave your ugly comment. Hit the dislike button and unfollow and unsubscribe. So, the inflation number is blowing up and is being chronically lied about. Absolutely blowing up, and they are lying, and they'll say, well, we had to do this because the tariffs we had to do, and we assumed this new methodology, and hey, kind of how, like, not so long ago, Powell said, well, you know, the payrolls number is a little bit overstated. You know, he had to start admitting to the lie when they originally told you it wasn't a recession because of the amazing employment. And we told you it's a lie. It's a fucking recession. You met the criteria, it's a lie. They created a new criteria and they lied to you. That's what they do. They lie. But you can't be a recession when you're creating so many jobs. And then they removed 819,000 jobs at the end of the flipping year. That backdates that decision, and it was a recession. And you're bouncing in and out of a continual recession right here, right now, and there's retrenchment coming, and your housing market, everything we said 2 years ago, 1 year ago, 6 months ago, is that the housing market will be next. All we need is the unemployment shoe to drop. That's dropped. There's a surplus of properties for sale. There's not enough buyers. Guys are showing me Palm Springs homes that sold for 1.4 million, now selling for 685,000. The banks don't want to lend. The real interest rate you pay on a mortgage is much, much higher than anything that was represented in the COVID pump. And you're sitting at primed real estate peak bubble season. And you're getting people sworn at that broke the line and sold for a bunch less in developments where there's other sellers. And they said, hey, I lost my job. I've been rehired on at thirds of the salary, and my wife lost her job, and she's yet to be rehired. What do you expect me to do? How can you hate on us and send us hate mail and do all of this stuff? We had to sell at all costs. No, you must hold the line. Price controls. Markets have got nothing to do with this. Affordability and employment have got nothing to do with this. We all hold the line like little communists that have a price control. If it's our asset, it's worth gazillions. Housing is mathematics. Get that into your stupid head. If you use leverage, which most people do, and even if you don't, the asset is priced on affordability of people to pay, which is an aspect and function of current banks' willingness to lend, current interest rates that you will get lending at, size of deposit required in an environment that has turned against you, employment market in an environment that has turned against you. Those factors determine what can be afforded and in the end what shall be paid. Forget little punks trying to hold the line on their net worths stuck in their homes. How many times we showed up on this YouTube channel and said, hey, Mr. Airbnb guy with 15 Airbnbs and never having put a deposit down in your life on any of them, with 0 downs from COVID days. You're really not sitting pretty. You don't have all those gazillions in equity. You don't have crap. You've never made a profit until you sell. No, but I used the equity to release and I bought more homes. Now I'm richer. Oh, okay. Okay. Wait till refinance day. See what the bank valuer says about your home. See how willing he is to lend after the 30-year bull market in debt ended and originating debt sucks. And it's a financial repressional vehicle asset class that's going to underperform for absolute decades, that banks no longer want to own, can't find another idiot to buy it in a securitization deal. Let's see, after all that, how that equity vaporware is looking in your flipping home. Because on a non-advisory basis, you don't listen. You don't listen right here, right now. And then we skip over to other channels to see, let's say, the masses. It gets brought up in our feed. A guy called Schneider says, the Fed is such stupid. They are refusing to see the signs of the downturn in the economy. Well, we agree on the downturn in the economy with Mr. Schneider. It's fact. We were saying it well before him on his channel. But what else does he say? The Fed doesn't want to see it. They don't want to hear it. We're desperate for cuts, he says. No matter how many ways you look at it, the Fed is ignoring and making statements that the economy is in better shape than people think when they know it's wrecked. Now, why would the Fed be lying about the state of the economy? Because they can't deliver the bloody interest rate cuts. Because that means you're saying the debt's just become worth more. You must pay more and receive less yield. How's that deal sound in a financial repressional world where the 40-year bull market is over? You're going to be in a bear market on debt for ages. It's going to cost you more money. It's going to underpay to inflation on the yield, and the capitalization of it is going to devalue chronically. And the government itself is actively working to do all those things. Devalue the dollar, devalue the debt. The TOT of long-term debt fell 55% from peak to trough, and then they gave it a rest because everyone came out on the short debt trade all of a sudden after Tudor Jones and Druckenmiller started talking their books, and now the dollar's fallen. And the dollar fell and fell and fell to help try devalue the debt. And what did Trump do? You Trump-tards? Here's the big, beautiful fucking bill. Here's 200 billion for the military-industrial complex. But excuse me, doggy. Doggy saved squat, and it's over. The big, beautiful bill is in town. The Genius Act. They're flipping everything. That is unleashing massive contracts. That's pumped Palantir's share that all your politicians are in with call options and stocks to the moon, while they biometrically institute border control. But Trump's on your team. Wow, who needs enemies with a team player like that? Spending like absolute blind fuckery, passing bills, phony theatrics with Powell and Elon, all theater for you to say, yeah, it's all about the personalities. It's not. It's a fucking 1,000-year-long agenda of absolute repression, global Marxism, surveillance states being uploaded in front of your stupid little face. That's what it is. Now you can go play little goats, but Trump ain't working for you. Stick to the plan. Stick to the plan, they say. Stick to the plan. The non-disclosure of the Epstein list and explain to you that there is a black bail racket being run. All the insiders. There's no good guys working for you. Good guys don't get to be an insider. You have to have heinous crimes on film against you to make it to the top table. What don't you understand? What don't you understand about that? There's so many MAGA idiots. There are so many MAGA idiots. You voted yourself right. You voted yourself freedom. You've got a friend on the inside. So what did Trump do on the payrolls number? I'm firing the Biden numbers collator. Now nobody likes a Biden person any more than me dislikes. But that's called shooting the messenger. You get one life at that. And once you fire that one and you put some Republican lackey in there, that's going to do his damnedest to make the number look better. And you still get garbage numbers. And you still get revisions. And you then still get a monthly revision actually, and then a follow-up annual revision. And they're all down revisions. They're all downward revisions. They're all fluff numbers. But your inflation number's accurate. Now that they've started estimating, you know where their finger comes out of? Somewhere back here. We estimate. We, the criminals, the frauds and the liars, all blackmailable, estimate to tell the normie flock that the number is. Let me tell you, and many people are saying, I was listening to this, I was watching actually and reading this thread about how Trump's winning. So the CIA, Quangos, and all their operatives are now doing X threads to explain to you how awesome Trump is doing. You see, what he's doing is he's negotiating hard. That's what they think. For America. That's the crime story. He's negotiating hard for America. So let me get this straight. Putting an extra tariff, which is a purchasing cost that his own citizens will pay, is negotiating hard for America. So he needs more income as a government. He's saying, hey, you imported that there item. It actually needs to cost 15, 25% more. You have to have that item. There may not always be affordable, high enough quality alternatives or substitutes in America. You must now pay your government more in taxes. That is the contention. That is the contention. So you pay more tax to your government because your buying tendencies are wrong. What if you're old and you've got some European medical equipment that needs capsules, breathing assists, whatever, and there isn't something that you can use in America that is the equivalent or of the same standard, the same quality? Then they argue he's bringing manufacturing back. To people that say manufacturing jobs are good jobs, let me tell you, America already went through that curve. Pittsburgh Steelers football team were called the Steelers, not because they stole, that's your politicians, because they were foundries for making steel. Now tell me, is that an affluent worker or is that a menially paid worker? They say in this thread, which I'm pretty sure is Trump PR, which invariably means Mossad, CIA, X thread, and I should find it and post it below for you to see for yourself, about, hey, the plan is winning. Manufacturing, when you go to China, Taiwan, and you look at the factories they are building, they are a control room with one person and automated and robotized now. That's where these guys are at. the technology, the Koreans, the Chinese, and the Japanese are bringing to manufacturing in advanced robotics and production line assembly doesn't involve a lot of jobs. And those production lines that still have quite a manual labor, those people work horrific hours for garbage money and deliver a far higher standard of work due to totalitarian and communism and virtual slavery conditions, and you will lose that job very quickly if you don't come up to standard in record time. I mean record time. You think Amazon employees don't have toilet time, sufficient toilet time? Go work at Chinese mass assembly line, which still involves manual worker assembly. Americans do not have the aptitude, do not have the lack of labor laws to actually allow that level of indentured slavery. People will be squeaking. People will be squeaking and crying and moaning and social mediaing their work conditions, grubbing about the slavery, the hours, the pay. They'll do all of that. I need to do a check. We fall under the Eurozone here. There's someone on site. I actually want to count the number of parking bays for paraplegics. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and a coach parking. 1 coach parking, 6 normal parkings, 5 paraplegic or disabled parkings. That's what communism does for you. 5 out of 11. Then again, we're all going to be pleading disability for our welfare UBI tokens not too far into the future. We'll take any money we can get once we've been leveled by the Marxists, communist, surveillance, finance, attack vector. I'll plead disability. I'll say I've got bloody Tourette's. Probably the closest thing I can hope to get away with, as I like to keep myself fit and healthy. Note, by the way, my red star on my cap. It's quite a doofus look wearing a cap in a bicycle. I'll be the first to admit it. It's quite a doofus look, but it's a red star one. I'm already trying to impress my communist overlords. So, to summarize, non-farm is an absolute lie. The true situation is far worse. You need to take on annual averages at least 130 off the number. However, if current trends continue to hold up, you probably need to take 200 out of the non-farm payrolls number before you can assume you've not contracted. For every number below 200 on current trends in the last 2 months, that's if you only lose 800,000 at the end of the year, you're looking at contraction for every job below 200,000. What else did we say? We told you that the inflation lie is going to be far greater now because they've just given themselves a license to estimate. Who estimates? Which guy is estimating? Large part of the new inflation number. Not the whole part, but a large part is going to come down to market estimation. Who's the guy? Some Trump appointee is the guy, and Trump works for you. He's all about truth, you all. He's all about the truth. Get rid of that Biden liar. How can the economy be so bad? So the other angle in this thread about Trump negotiating so hard. What has actually happened is Europe, for example, will lose market share to America. European products. Why? America had a huge trade deficit problem with China and Europe, the two biggest. Those that still buy BMWs, Porsche, will pay a luxury tax premium. That's how they impoverish you. You'll probably have some ridiculous balloon finance on it. Although automobile finance, like home insurance, is becoming deeply unpopular and much more money is required. You'll pay a large part of that balloon finance will be taxed to your government, which you'll then pay interest on your hire purchase agreement, because you want to show that you don't care. You're still driving a Porsche, the new one. Good luck with that. So the consumers will pay tax. Stupid enough consumers will pay interest on that tax by financing it, because that's all they've ever done. They're not financially educated. So the notion that some put forward is, yeah, Trump negotiated hard. You know, all this Apprentice Playbook stuff of practicing, telling people they're garbage, they're fired. You know, that he's kind of carried over into this presidency. Let's be clear. Cars don't have margins like that. Nobody is absorbing the full tariff to maintain market share. Everybody says, yeah, they're absorbing the tariff. It's free money for us. And the producer is taking a 25% hit on their profits. Sorry, certain products simply don't have that in margin, let alone 50%. Let alone 50%. Cars outside of Tesla and Ferrari, cars have very small margin. The people who are making all the money are the finance companies, and they don't want to make that money anymore. They're less sure about their book. What does that spell? Inflation. American cars can pass on a 10% increase and still be cheaper than nations that have a 15% tariff or a 25% tariff. They can reboost their margins because they're not making the money on the finance anymore to the same degree. So the car maker company will have you pay more for the car. Expect local American cars to get more expensive as European ones do. They'll just appear relatively more attractive, although all the prices will be a rip. The second-hand car market is your best bet without finance for buying a new motor. Cash. Cash is king. Cash is king. That's where you're going. companies aren't eating margins because Trump laid a tariff. Let's be clear, no one does work for nothing to retain market share. Not unless they're cross-subsidizing somewhere else. Unless they're cross-subsidizing somewhere else, no one is doing anything for nothing. No one's saying, sure, Trump, take 25% of my 15% margin, my 5% margin, or take my entire margin, I'll make it at a loss for you. No one. No one does that. You may have not-for-profit silver slams in the silver market, but you've got a Ponzi racket of mafia. It serves them in other ways, where they make much more money, the banking cartel, by keeping the price down. Especially pushing solar panels and many other things, military weapons that all require silver. They make it back elsewhere. But nobody chooses to make no money. You can cross-subsidize, but if you're a car seller, there's no subsidy. They don't make enough on the services and the dealer recalls to sell you a car for nothing. So you're paying. You're just paying pure tax on your European goods. And you will on your Chinese goods too. So there's a whole Trump South Africa story as well. Cyril Ramaphosa being punished, I think, for the ICJ, the South African legal team that got Israel indicted and proven guilty for crimes against humanity, full-blown annihilation of an ethnicity and population known as genocide. Now, don't get me wrong, the last government I'd align with is the African National Congress and Cyril Ramaphosa. But people get into these lesser evil games. They're all evil. They're all playing parts. Sometimes by accident, they end up playing one particular part that actually is correct. Don't choose your politics by color or template. Choose it by principle. On that one single point, and it's about the only point I can think of, need to stop in the shade here, huffing and puffing like a unfit. Getting back on the bike, got to get fit. Too much time sitting in front of the laptops. Got to get lean if you want to do it at 1:30 in the middle of summer on a desert island. Have yourself 38 degrees C. It's the way it goes. Accept it and eat it. Puff like an old bat. An old badger. Okay, so on that single point, the African National Congress, believe it or not, I endorse entirely in terms of the issue of the indigenous people from well before 3,000 years ago, when there were temples there, that have been there tens, 15,000s of years, and actually lived peacefully with all ethnicities, Christians and Jews, until the post-war era, when Caucasus, Khazarian, Ashkenazi, that have never lived and whose forefather, Mongol Turkic extraction, that assumed the faith of Judaism, suddenly decided this is to be their new home, arrived with the intention all along of removing everyone else. That is the cuckoo in the nest, and the manner in which they do it is genocide. It's always been, always will be, and so it will continue, and you can either call it that or not. But anyway, politics aside, that'll offend a lot of people. The evangelicals will go, Muslim man bad. Hey, there's lots of things Muslim men have done that are bad. Lots of things Christian men have done that are bad. In the name of the war on terror, we flattened a whole bunch of nations. And now they're using those displaced people to do replacement age, provision of men in your country, And they'll soon conscript the indigenous men, not the off-grid ones that have just been put on there on asylum, staying in a 4-star hotel. They'll soon conscript the indigenous white ones in England, Ireland, send you to war against Russia, man bad. And those men will be impregnating your girlfriends and sisters for you, following a futile, costly war that will shed great blood. No doubt that that's quite possible scenario. All this means gold goes up. Long run, there's no doubting gold goes up. Inflation will be going up and is rapidly going up right now in an environment of absolute low growth, negative growth, job losses, all of these things. And as a result, you are in hyperstagflation. And eventually you won't be able to hike. By the way, there was a girl who had a slip from a year ago, Walmart, of goods that she typically buys. She went into Walmart and put all the same items in that checkout trolley. She had the slip. This is a video. 1 year later, 135% more money. 1 year, more than double. And I piped in, because she didn't cover this fact, who knows how much shrinkflation on the packaging may have applied. I don't know if she made it like for like by weight. I didn't have that detail. So maybe she did. Maybe she's not aware of that trick. But she was so frustrated by the cost of living, she dug out a legacy slip that she had kept 1 year ago, 135% more. So this particular Quango, PSYOP, X-Thread guy doing the job for stick with the plan, Trump's your guy, he also said Trump is winning. The low-end labor pay rates are going up substantially. Tariffs allowed for this. He's bringing back manufacturing. And it's like, no. Tariffs are a tax on you for buying imported goods. They reduce market share for European and Chinese companies to a degree where there are viable substitutes. They may boost market share for local companies where you have true competition like for like. However, that isn't what's led to higher wages at the bottom end. Higher wages at the bottom end, I refer you back to the 135% slip difference for like goods. You put the exact same item online in the checkout basket. It cost 135% more. That's the reason why the low-end wages are climbing briskly. Because the food line, the bread line, as it is regularly known, needs to continue to be able to eat. We're not ready for the riots in the street yet. The whole narrative of Trump's winning isn't served well if blue-collar America all take to the streets because they can't afford food. They can't afford food. I wanted to have a drink of water before this ride, and I forgot to do it. My mouth was so dry when I started, so now I'm really tripping over my words. I'll have a good drink when I get back. But that's the reason why the bottom end is rising. Absolute inflation. And this is the nominal Jedi mind trick of the cultists. The stock market's at an all-time high. Lower-end workers' wages are up. That sounds like electioneering talk right there. Trump is winning. He's fixed what Biden broke. You know, it's like, no, he's continuing the destruction of your nation by the devaluation and debasement of your debt and fiat, which is meaning people on very low-end salaries can barely survive at all and are falling below breadline. That is actually seeing menial job, low-end job worker rates go up for reasons of survival, not economy boost. He also said, repatriating all these immigrants has led to a boost in the lower end working wages. No, it's the inflation. And by the way, if you look at the true number of repatriations versus the true number of how much Biden let in, you barely started. It's a bit like saying doggy saved the American government money, a big number of money. No, it didn't. Not when you just signed the big, beautiful bill. It's even in the name. It's big, it thinks it's beautiful, and it's a massive bill. And it's pork chops all around for the ruling classes. 200 billion to the military-industrial complex. Huge contracts being awarded to Palantir. Palantir will become the new BlackRock. You just don't hate it enough. You just don't hate this company enough. So there's so much inflation at the food and necessities level, rent, food, that low-end workers are getting increases that make them no better off, but deal with the nominal versus real debasement and fiat devaluation. It doesn't help you earn $200 a week, where previously you earned $100 a week, when your groceries has gone up 135%. You're actually poorer. That's the story of where we are. And in the end, both gold and silver will expose all of this with major upside moves. We are currently, as I mentioned, a bit of a holding point. We are currently at a bit of a holding point, technically. I think we'll be coiling rather nicely. And in the end, the move is likely to be up. It can't be down for too long. Need more time on the bike? Do you like the bikey videos? Hit the like if you like the bike. I like the bike. Say a comment for the algorithm. I like the bike. So gold coils, there's no major news for a while now. Of planned nature, that is. Economic calendar type news. Britain has a big day, couple of days time. Might affect the pound and a few other things. Only bad news comes out of Britain. Let's be clear. The rant continues. So what do we know as I bypass a sadly demised hedgehog that was also fallen foul along this road? Gold is coiling, and in the macro, with very little doubt, it ends up a lot higher. Silver, again on the macro, could start coiling again. It's my default expectation. And will end up even more high. And the same goes for platinum. All those issues with lease rates that came out on platinum and silver will re-emerge. The problem is not solved. And in actual fact, at some point, round about non-farm payrolls day, it has to be said, in the 2 hours following payrolls, 200 million ounces from a laptop stroke computer in a bank, no doubt, were sold into the post-NFP payrolls. So clearly they were aware. People don't decide on a whim. Oh hell, let's just sell more than 20%. There's about 900 billion. Let me say that again. There's about 900 million with an M ounces annual production expected. In 2 hours, the cartel, the blackmailable cartel of irredeemable, heinous crimes, probably against children and infants, were ready to sell 200 million ounces and stood ready and did exactly that in 2 hours. So 20%, more than 20%, if it was a billion ounces, which is not quite, it would be 20%. More than 20% was sold in 2 hours of the entire, all the silver miners, all the other miners that actually are the biggest contributors to silver. 100% of the silver miners, entirely annual production. 20% in 2 hours. What do you make of them apples? All on the back of a payrolls number that disappointed. Now, why would that be bad for a monetary metal? What actually happened is gold went up. It's a harder money to manipulate, gold. It's a bigger market to manipulate. And very easy for other central banks to put the squeezes on you. Bitcoin down. Quick heads up for crypto friends. On the week NFP number, silver faced a 200 million ounce not-for-profit sale, I would say, but they've managed to move the market down. A manipulation dump of over 20% of its supply. Imagine what crypto kids would be doing if 20% of all Bitcoin ever mined was dumped. Just to give it perspective. People have become customary, so comfortable with ridiculous numbers on silver. There's 21 million of Bitcoin. I think 19, 20 of it just about done, issued. Imagine 4 million Bitcoin being sold in 2 hours. I mean, 4 million. How much does Saylor have? How many 100,000s does he have of Bitcoin? Imagine 4 million in Bitcoin being sold. Anyway, so that's more shorts to keep it down. They'll keep on digging because they've tied themselves to that math. They've tied themselves to that math. They're not about to turn noble. They need a crisis so that they can start the smashdown on silver, a demand-destroying event. Cue my August, September, October period suspicions into November, of course, but starting in, so that they can cover some shorts, lower down. Because the lease rates will come back, all the problems will come back. The fact that silver is used is going to come back. So silver and platinum back in the range, not at the breakout levels anymore, the new recent high breakout levels, but given enough time there will be. With OVX, it should be a major plunge on a demand-destroying event. So keep investing is my take out from that. Keep stacking. That's my take for myself. Keep accumulating. But don't expect to be liked for doing what you do. Don't expect not to face attack vectors for doing what you do. The pursuit of truth is indeed a revolutionary act. In Marxist, Bolshevik, inversion, perversion times, the truth is indeed a revolutionary act. And nobody gets into the political system. So let me cover this. Big hill, just done, gasping, like emphasis is kicking. Don't smoke, sorry, to disappears. So for those that say, but there may be a kind to a devil and soul that's in power and will flip his allegiances and save the masses from the bland coal. It gets so many of these people. And other statements like MAGA guys saying lots of insiders and families are aligned with Trump. That doesn't make him honest or good. It makes it more likely that he's working for them. Here's the things that Trump stick to the plan people just can't get into their heads, that I just have to keep hammering home. And this is such effective brainwashing. There's so many semi-intelligent 95% troopers in this world, and they're the biggest problem. It's not a sleeper that's your problem. A complete sleeper is a complete sleeper. You're just treated like an NPC. They're completely switched off. The Trump MAGA-tards, and that's, when you say that, they think, oh, so you're pro-Biden. No. No. They push the societal collapse, the inversion, perversion, their version of a sexual revolution, celebrating everything but heterosexuality, flags, all of that. That's Marxism culture. That was the Marxism culture. Trump, by pretending to be your friend, is actually bringing the more dangerous Marxism. Of course we're enraged by pedophiles being normalized, and transgenderism and transhumanism and all of that. Trump is bringing the biometric borders and surveillance grid to America, to Mexico, through Shinbaum of BlackRock, who just amazingly doesn't happen to be a Roman Catholic in a Roman Catholic country. Check out whatever, if you're curious, what her persuasion is. But she worked for BlackRock, with the least diversified board in the world. That's enforcing diversification on everybody else. And they've agreed, Mexico is agreeing. No, Shinbaum of BlackRock is committing Mexico, and Trump of America is committing America to a biometric surveillance grid. That's what's happening. And it affects all Mexicans, it affects all Americans, it affects all of you. It affects every single one of you. That's where we've got you guys. And it's coming, and it'll come for Canada too. And Carney, the pervert, WEF candidate, central banker candidate, so deep and died into the structure of corruption, perversion, yet always putting forward this professional in a suit, intellectual, Sean Connery of central banking type vibes. Can't trust him, shouldn't trust him, absolutely poisonous, absolutely compromised, absolutely blackmailable. Will also put Canada into the same trap, because there's no point locking up the southern border with biometrics if you don't lock up the northern border. There's no point locking up by land and not locking up by air and sea. There is no point doing it even to north and south if you won't have a similar system for Europeans, which ironically, an electronic currency is being released in October. Biometrics is becoming essential to deal with every government department. The way of the world is moving forward into 100% track and trace surveillance. And Trump is at the very forefront of delivering it, with the evangelicals cheering him on. Yay, he's fighting for us, trust the plan. It's to get the immigrants out that Biden flushed in. Biden was the setup for the narrative, and we predicted this and we told you this on this channel and on the Reset Sniper. The narrative is Biden lets them in. Trump says you need biometrics to get them out. It's quite simple. It's a catch-22. How do you get people to accept a surveillance grid society? You create a problem. You get their angry reaction. Of course, they let all the criminals out of these countries, the most dangerous people, so that you could have some murders and some rapes to get angry about. Innocent people caught up in politics of the day. All of that was transpiring, all of that was happening, and then you get your hero who says, guys, I'm going to fix this for you. How dare that Biden do that shit? And out he comes and saves the day. Well, friends, gold and silver investment is part of the solution. Here's what I say to those that say, but maybe a good guy gets in there. Hope without rationality is fantasy. Let me just say that again. You can attribute this one to me. I didn't read it anywhere. I tried to, in one sentence, distill irrational hope. Hope without any basis in rationality, how the world works and logic, how money and power works and logic, is a fantasy. If you are dealing with your mental cognizance and stress you feel from this situation in such a way that you believe hanging on to a fantasy is the only way you can cope, you need to man up and stop being weak-minded. You see, you don't get all the power invested in one person. That would make them vulnerable. That one person might get some crazy notion, kind of like Kennedy. And you all know how he ended when he didn't want to play the game with Israel. Didn't want to let them steal the nuclear weapons, didn't want them to acquire them, etc., etc. Well, he ended up hit from the front, head rolling back. Exit wound. Not the patsied story of bullshit that you get from a CI Mossad intelligence-based complex, the permanent government. No, not that. So one person never gets all the power. There are interlocking committees where everybody works together at various levels that get smaller and smaller the higher up you go. The greater crime and the greater vampire you are, the higher up you go, the more you can be relied on. The more soulless and Satanist you are, the more you can be relied on, the more you are blackmailable, the more you will never turn your back. Your whole life was dedicated to Lucifer and ill deeds and absolute power, and living in an environment where everybody has the stuff on you and you have it on them, and you know real darkness. You don't suddenly get a good guy in there. They have many levels to climb where they test you for good guyisms. Good guys don't go up that ladder. You know that old saying, bad guys get the girl, nice guys come last. In a control structure of blackmail, deviance, sexual perversion, the nice guys get thrown out, get patsied, get thrown as raw meat for the masses when they need to arrest a mule for a drug bust so that you think your guys are working for you, keeping the country clean. That's where they end up, in that control structure. The real bad guys get promoted and promoted. And they're all in committees, all agreeing. And any sign of one guy getting independent ideas of being nice all of a sudden doesn't go down well. All your conversations with your wives will be recorded. When you take a crap will be recorded. They'll know every thought before you've had time to think of it. Start getting any independent notions that you even think about and start searching on the interwebium once a bad guy in the bad guy structure climbing the ladder. And you will quickly be pulled in and set tumbling down on the game of snakes and ladders, all the way back down one of the ropiest of snakes to the bottom of the ladder again. There's no place for nice guys in committees of oppression, in Marxism. The most ruthless find their way at the top. That's how Stalin got there. That's how all the dictators in all the nations, you sell your soul in blackmail, in vile crimes, and that's how you get there. Truth is gold, and they hate you for buying it. Truth is silver, truth is platinum and precious metals, and they will try hurt you for buying it. Expect to be shaken out. Expect capital gains taxes. Expect every ruse possible to prevent them from allowing you wealth in their reset. That's who you're dealing with. They are your enemy. They're actively working against you. Anything else is fantasy. Till I talk to you next time. Bye for now.
Tired of profit wipeouts and blown accounts from following trade signal groups? Looking for a better way to trade? Why not be part of a principled, structured, and technically based community set inside a unique trading methodology? Enjoy a constructive learning environment while practically trading markets, supported by a bespoke platform run through browser or app, specifically designed to teach and engage you whilst learning and growing as the markets move. This is not a Telegram or Slack signal group. All trade ideas are based on a proprietary technical analysis process honed over decades, which is the HVF method, leading to trade ideas with fast-moving breakouts and tight stops, exact entries and exits, nuanced interim considerations, and ultimately strong rewards. Submissions are graded and scored by Francis for potential high-quality setups, and we provide bespoke tools to help get the job done properly and with precision. Over time, and with focused effort, you'll begin to look at charts, price action, and markets in a whole new light. Community updates every day by Francis and our 3 webinars a week provide a 360-degree approach, which are presented by our experienced team of trade leaders to spot potential trades. We're a community of self-actualized individuals, spanning the globe and active 24/7, 365. The premium community provides a warm, supportive, and cooperative place for people willing to listen, participate, contribute, and to learn. Transform your approach to trading now. Transform your life. Book an introductory call with us on the link below.